Good morning, everybody. I thought we'd start off today by just answering a couple of questions I received yesterday while doing some phone interviews about the weather. And the first question was about Europe. And so what I want to show you here is the forecast for the next 10 days across Europe for temperatures compared to average. And as you know, much of Europe is looking at temperatures ranging from 5 to almost 20 degrees above average. And most of this is due to a really blocked North Atlantic pattern right now, which is going to help send all that snow into New England we've talked about, but it's also helping to streak the jet stream right across this section of Europe. So it's going to hit the UK. It's going to hit, this section here of Scandinavia and then roll into this part of Russia. But to the south of it, a lot of warm air is just being advected or moved from the lower latitudes into this section of Europe. And just to show you what this means, over the next 10 days where that storm track lies, you can see how it's going to be quite wet throughout the British Isles, the streak that runs through northern parts of France, through Germany, right into this part of Russia. That's where we expect the wettest conditions. While to the south, throughout Italy, then we come down here to like all of the nations that kind of surround the Black Sea. I mean, you can just see how dry things are. They're left out of that pattern. So I haven't covered too much of Europe lately, so I just thought we'd just take a quick look at how things are kind of panning out here at the beginning of April. Now, the other big question, which I got asked about 4 times yesterday, was to show you this. And you probably noticed that I have not talked much about predicting the cloud cover for the total eclipse. And the reason for that is, how much we already struggle with the timing of weather systems, right? I mean, if you're off by 12 hours, while it may seem insignificant because you end up still getting the pattern coming through, we ever try to predict cloud for a very specific event that's going to last 3 minutes, never rely on the models out that far. But I'll show it to you anyway, and that's what you've been looking at here. I put this on agweather.com. So if you just go to agweather.com, ag-wx.com, it looks like that when you arrive. You just come down here and click on humidity, precipitable water dew point, and you'll see I have it down there as cloud cover. And it works just like all the other maps I have. So the white, of course, is cloud, and we can just play this forward to kind of get us out there through the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Why don't we just park it middle of the day on the 8th? Remembering that the eclipse path is something like that. And as you look at it now, most of Texas, because of where this next deep trough is going to be, getting into Oklahoma and Arkansas, may be pretty cloudy. Could we get a better view through here? Possibly. I mean, yesterday, if I would have looked at this, I would have said New York was the place I'd want to go. But today on the forecast of clouds, it's worse. So it's going to be very difficult. And to be honest with you, the best time to look at this map will be literally the day before. And I understand that that's very problematic if you're trying to make plans to get into the path of this eclipse. And it is amazing to see. So I highly recommend it. But I just want to let you know, we will do a terrible job predicting the cloud cover using our forecast models until we get within a couple of days of this event. But you now know where the resource is on AgWeather. Please go check it out. Please. All right, from there, we've got to get in and talk about what we've seen lately, because yesterday's severe storm outbreak was pretty large here. So just as the sun was setting last night, this was the complex that's going to develop into a much deeper low as it rolls over the Great Lakes and moves into New England. I'll show you how that's going to look in a few moments. But before we review that severe weather, I kind of like to take a look at the things, that were kind of revealed because of a lack of cloud cover. And the first is going to be this dust in Texas. This is now the second pretty sizable dust storm inside of 2 weeks we've seen coming out of Texas, West Texas. And it's not as though these are, super uncommon. This happens here. But that the narrative I've carried is that we've not been able to return a lot of moisture back into this area very effectively over the last several weeks. And so I just get concerned when I see so much dust there early, that if something large doesn't shift in the pattern, we just are running into a problem where this is a early season spot to be watching for drought development right in through this whole area. Okay, the other thing is we got a halfway decent look at some of the Intermountain West with snowpack. You can also see what's left of the snow right here coming out of Alberta into Saskatchewan and parts of Montana. But I was really curious how things looked on a higher resolution satellite for the western snowpack. So let me take you there. This image was from yesterday on April 1st, looking at western snowpack. And the reason why I give you some of this Pacific view is because in the marine stratocumulus layer, that's this large layer of clouds that's out here, we can often see ship tracks. So these are basically clouds induced by exhaust from large ships that roll across this part of the ocean. And they're very easy to see because of how nearly saturated the marine boundary layer is here. For those of you that live in California, you know this cloud like the back of your hand. But again, let's look back at the snow in the west just to kind of get an idea on the extent. Now, if I take you and show you a year ago, you can see how much, now some of this is cloud, of course, but look at how much more snow was in the Sierra Nevada and getting up into the Cascades and even farther to the north here in parts of Washington. In fact, let's move this a little bit so you can see it. So much more snow compared to a year ago throughout the Cascades in the Northern Rockies. So I just think it's important to kind of look at those differences. Okay. Storm reports. Now, it's very early this morning as I'm recording here, and so this is very preliminary, but we've already had about 183 reports, and a lot of this was hail. If you want to take a quick look at the radar here over the last 18 hours, I will let you know that last night, if you were up watching the radar for these storms, there was something wrong with the data feed. You see it flashing like that? Several of the apps that use this, that same data feed, you probably saw that some of the radars went down. I'm still waiting for some of them to come back online this morning. But overall, this was a pretty potent system, and it's really just into day one of what it's potentially going to be doing. And I just made a quick map here this morning through 4 a.m. of where we had hail last night. And you can see that streak that starts in Texas, goes through Oklahoma, right into Missouri, almost close to St. Louis here, dropping some very, very large hail. So if you get these reports, please report them to the National Weather Service. You can tweet them at the National Weather Service. You can call the National Weather Service. Just take advantage of that pathway of getting your information out about the damage that you've seen. We need it. It's very important to continue to collect that information. All right. With all of that, though, we did get quite a bit of rain out of this. And through 4 a.m. this morning, heavy rains along that path in through here. So remember, we've been watching this whole area for the potential for 1 to 3 inches of rain out of this system this week. And we've already had places that have gotten much more than that. And on the back side of it, we've seen some snow. We'll take a look at that in a few seconds. Remember, this whole low started way down here in California, so you can still see, a few days ago when it was coming through California and Arizona. Now, where it will finish will be into parts of the Northeast, where it's expected to put down a lot of snow. It's also expected to toss a lot of snow right into this part of Wisconsin as well. So we need to get in and talk about that. Because the history of this system already producing snow, well, we can see here that over the last 3 days in parts of South Dakota, in Nebraska, several inches of snow. Some places you can see the color bar now, 6 to 10 inches in this area just fell. And we couldn't see it on the satellite data because it was still cloudy there when I was looking at it yesterday. But just a good look here at what this system has already done through last night. So here we are today. Early this morning, we have flood watches out for several states here in the Eastern Corn Belt and the Ohio River Valley. Still, storms being warned as severe, and also a tornado watch that lingers this morning. But take a look. We have winter storm warnings for parts of Wisconsin, winter weather advisories surround that, winter storm watch in the UP, and also winter storm watches into parts of the interior of the Northeast. And so this system, as it continues, is going to pack a punch. So today's severe storm outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, we've now seen an enlargement of this area kind of based on the Ohio River Valley here that is now up to a moderate risk. So that is the second to highest category. Now, where I get the data for these maps comes directly from the Storm Prediction Center. It's a shapefile, and I just map it for you so we can have it live on agweather.com. But you should always go to the source, spc.noaa.gov, spc.noaa.gov. And what you'll be able to do here is when you land on that page, in fact, let me just show what it looks like when you land on it. It looks like this. Come right over here to the top and click on Convective Outlooks. You can see you've got storm reports. You can look at mesoscale discussions, watches. So we still have this tornado watch into this area early this morning. You have your fire analysis if there is fire hazard, but click on Convective Outlooks. And what I want you to do is click on the day one. And then what's nice about this is that they break these categories down into their individual risks. So like tornado risk, wind risk, and hail. And if you just go back to the tornado, just read the legend. It'll kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at. So we're looking at probabilities, and that kind of inset circle here, oval here, means that there's a 15% chance of having a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. But that hatching represents the probability is greater than 10% of that tornado, should it form in here, to be EF2 to EF5. In other words, the stronger tornadoes. So that's, again, within 25 miles of any given point. Now, from there, we'll go over to the wind. It's the same idea. The hatching, though, represents where you have gusts 10% or greater chance of over 65 knots. And if you look at the hail, that's 10% chance or greater of 2-inch diameter hail. So we're watching this particular region today. The wind shear is about perfectly set up for these storms to continue to press into this area and reinvigorate later today and give us a pretty sizable risk of severe weather. I believe, I'll have to go back and check, but this might be the first moderate risk of 2024, certainly the first one of spring. Okay, so what about the next day, day 2? We're going to watch, again, parts of the mid-Atlantic here, getting into the Carolinas and down into Florida as this system finally leaves. But not bounce around on you too much, I do want to remind you that the northern side of this is going to be dropping a lot of snow. And then there's another system coming in to the west midweek, so we'll look at both of these. This map, though, is showing you whoa, sorry about that. There we go. This map is showing you the probability, sorry about that, over the next 3 days, of getting 2 inches of snow. And watch this. There goes 4 inches. So right here in Wisconsin, coming out of the UP, that's a 90 to 95% chance of 4 inches. And here's 8. So you're now watching this area and the interior of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Also parts of Ontario and to Quebec, just looking at big-time snows out of this system as it rolls through. Might as well go up to 12 inches because you have a better than 50% chance of getting a foot of snow in through here and also these 3 areas, which are also topographically induced in this region. So we've got a multifaceted system, and we're just going to pick it up with the high-res NAM, which, in my opinion, did a better job at capturing last night's convection and heavy rains into this area. So early this morning, 5 a.m., what we'll watch here as we play forward is this afternoon. Do you see that? So watch that first bit of moisture go through. Hang on just a second. Let's get a fresh update on this. There we go. Watch that first bit of moisture go through. There we are. Sorry about that. That's coming through early this morning. So if you're in Ohio, the morning event is not the big event. Ready? It's later today when it clears out and the front swipes through there that we're going to watch out for this area to have the risk of the strongest severe storms. So rain this morning and then the main frontal boundary tonight, and that's where we're going to watch for the initiation of the severe weather in this area. So this is this evening. Now watch the backside of this. Strong winds, heavy snow, rain initially into the northeast. But as this low wraps itself up and stacks up, and when I say stacks up, I mean the upper level trough sits right on top of the surface low. The pressure gradient is going to really increase on the backside. The only thing keeping this away from a blizzard might be just the duration of the winds and snow, but it looks as though through tonight into early tomorrow morning, that low is going to curl up. It sits right over the southern tip of Lake Michigan, and it sits here and spins, and it is going to be, it's going to pack a punch. Now, of course, I got to fly out of O'Hare tonight over to Omaha. I'm going to be in Kearney tomorrow. Can't wait to see that group, but I'm not so sure how easy it is for me to be able to get there and get home. You know, just personally, my son has a track meet tomorrow or Thursday, and we'll have to see if make sure I can get home for that. Anyways, deep low continues to curl up here, and look at the backside of the snow squalls, heavy snows. Look, I love looking at these things. You know, really nice spiral to this low, and there it is. This is getting us all the way out to midday Thursday. So we've got several more days of dealing with this same low pressure system because it stops and slows down, stacks up and spins. And honestly, I want that same thing happening here. Maybe not with the snow, but with the rain. Got to get one to slow down in the southern part of the United States. Okay, you notice the next system's coming into the west. This is Wednesday. And it's going to streak through there and dive right back down into the southwest, and that one's going to emerge and give us another shot at quite a bit of adverse weather. But I showed you one snow map. Let's look at another one here. This is the high-res NAM, and we'll just get an idea on what it thinks for total snow. And you can see that right in through here, we're looking at several inches possible. The NAM's up there in the above 10 inches in this whole area, and also to the interior of the northeast. But take a look. There will be snow on the back side of this coming down. How well will it stick? Not well, but it'll be here through the Ohio River Valley. So severe weather now, then followed by snow showers later. To kind of give you another view, this is from the National Digital Forecast Database, looking at the 2 events here for snow. But let's flip this over to the European model so we can actually see a little bit more of what's going to be going on. Oops, sorry, that's 24-hour. There we go. This is total accumulated snow, so you can also see what's happening into Ontario and Quebec. Now, it's a 10-to-1 ratio. That's a very difficult ratio to use in April, but the potential for heavy snow sits in this region. That's the main idea that I want you to see out of it. And for completeness, I will go ahead and show you the GFS just as another model to get an idea about this. Now, again, model forecasting of this, like, I don't think we're going to be getting 8 inches of snow here in Iowa. Certainly no precedent for that in the Europe. Well, geez. NDFD. Yeah, the NDFD doesn't have it. It's much farther. Let's go back to a previous run. It's got more of that snow in Wisconsin. I'm just trying to gauge if the system really will be able to toss snow this far back into Iowa. Be watching for it. That's what we have to do. Just be watching for that very carefully. But the point of all of this is to say where the snow is coming through has been an area that's not had much. There's the chance that after this event, the numbers right into this section of Wisconsin will go from 60 to 75% up to 100% on the year. And coming in through parts of the interior of the Northeast, we'll continue to hit these same areas again as well. Compared to departure, so if you'd like to know what it takes to get back to average, we need 11 to 14 inches right here to get it back to average. So just kind of we need more than 30 up in the UP, but just thought I'd going to share the season-to-date numbers just to get some perspective on this. Okay, other than that, let's talk about that moisture, because as this system curls up, it continues to hit this area where we're missing a lot of soil moisture. And I'm recording in my basement right now, and my sump pump has run 3 times since I started this recording. So it's good to see moisture getting down. Of course, I understand it's much different running along the sides of the walls of my basement, but moisture returning to a big section of the Mississippi and Ohio and Missouri Valley that needs it is critical. Now, we'll talk more about what might be coming into the Southern Plains in a second, which is another dry area that I'm thinking about. But flood watch just continues for this area. Please remember that. Okay. This morning on the new AIFS forecasting system, the 10-day outlook really went much, much wetter in the Delta. Now, I've made a case for you in the last several videos that when we get into summer, I'm worried about one of 3 spots. It's going to be down here in the Southern Plains, it'll be in the Delta, or it'll be in the Southeast. That's where my thinking is right now. Could that shift? Could drought develop somewhere else? Could it be west? Could it be in the upper Midwest? The Northeast? Sure. I just don't have evidence for that yet, so I'm presenting to you what I know. So when I look at this, I think, what is possibly driving the major increase in the risk of heavy rains into this area? And then, are we going to get a low slow enough to do that? That we shouldn't say what we want in a forecast, but I do want it. We've got to break this risk of drought down in this area. All right, so just keeping a focus on those areas, I'll show you this. That was the AIFS system, the artificial intelligence. This is the ensemble. And this is the chance over the next 10 days of getting 2 inches of rain. And so now we can, of course, see the current system causing all of this. But remember, we have ones following it. And the next couple that come through really start to increase that probability here. Here's the chance at 1 inch. 10 days, 1 inch. So now you know why I'm waiting to see how much this map changed based on this new forecast. And to be honest, for a lot of the Midwest, this is well timed. Get it in early before we drastically increase our planting, pace in this section of the country. So what's going to cause it? Well, let's start here. Remember, we began this video with Europe. Well, there's the big blocking high right now over Greenland. So the jet stream is screaming underneath it, going straight through the British Isles and then eventually into, this part of Russia, keeping the southern part of Europe warm. Well, here's the sequence of troughs coming through the U.S. that are going to stack up right there. This is by tomorrow night, and spin their way into the Northeast with much colder air. The only reason why that was able to do this is because of the upstream blocking. Just slowed the whole system down, stacked up vertically, sits and spins for several days. Now, I do not want to see a repeat of this in early May, because that is the type of system that drives a frost all the way back down here to the Mid-South in early May, and it can happen. So we need to get rid of these deep lows by that time. But already by Wednesday into Thursday, our next trough dips into the west. And here it sits through Friday and Saturday, and it ejects early next week. Well, let me rephrase that. Late this week and early next week. By Saturday night, we're going to watch again for the risk of the warmer, more unstable air opening up into the plains. Will this low slow down enough to draw that moisture back to the west? Probably not, because it goes straight to the Dakotas, but I'm thinking maybe the system that comes out of the southwest on the 9th and 10th gets the job done. And that's the one that's really slow and moving through New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and to my home state of Illinois over a 3-day stretch ending on the 12th, so the 9th through the 12th. And that's the one that's going to be possibly adding the last big punch of rain after this. Now, we did have a pretty big shift in the forecast out here toward tax day, which I've told you is kind of a day I think the pattern relinquishes some of its hold a bit. And what is now different is the ridge in the west is larger and the trough in the east is deeper. And you're going to see what that does to the temperature pattern in a few moments. But now let's get in and see what the models say. So GFS left, European right. We've already examined this system. There it is, curling up Wednesday midday, Wednesday night, getting into Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon and evening, still pesky and spinning with strong winds and cold conditions and rain and snow. We then get into Friday. We're watching that next system slide down into California. And then it ejects on Saturday. This is Saturday midday, Saturday evening. So that's where we're going to watch for that risk of strong to severe storms. Right in through here, Saturday evening. We then watch this system curl straight north. See that? Kind of pulls right into this area. The GFS leaves it a little bit farther to the south for the rest of the weekend. So again, your weekend starts off with the system in the west, opens up in the central plains, and moves east. But what I'm watching after that is this guy right down here. This is next Monday the 8th. Through the 9th and into the 10th, that low emerges farther to the south. Much easier way to tap into Gulf moisture. Likely another outbreak of severe weather here on the 9th into the 10th. And then again on the night of the 10th into the 11th as this system skirts along the far to the south track than the previous lows. So several systems coming through. If we add them all up in the European, that's what they look like. I'm just going to take you all the way out there to 10 days with this model. I know that's not wise to do, but I'm just looking at that last system on the 8th, 9th, and 10th and what it's adding to a critical area of the country down here. This is what the GFS looks like day 10. So there are differences. GFS is farther east with the moisture than the European is, but we just need to see, what both models are suggesting. Back to the snow really quickly. Let's get an idea for the next 7 days here from the European model. You notice that the northern Rockies could very easily pick up some really good snow here, which they need. That's the deficit area we talked about a few moments ago, but now we've got a better look, or broader look, I should say, of what's coming through the Great Lakes and Northeast, and there's the GFS solution. All right. Okay, what about week 2? Well, at week 2, remember, the ridge that's in the west really is showing up, and there's a broader trough here. And at this time of year, this means lows sliding through. So there's that system we're going to watch on like the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. That's kind of the time frame. 8th over here, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, getting across the country. And as it does so, we could really drive some moisture back into the southern plains, which is desperately needed. We got to see if this continues to be in the forecast. All right, temperatures quickly here. A lot of cold air behind the low that's moving through the country right now. Temperatures have dropped off 15 to almost 30 degrees behind this. And later today, very strong winds will rip through the plains of the United States, curling their way into this low that'll be over Lake Michigan. Frost over the next 7 days is shown here. So this is in gray. We're expecting a frost. If you take a quick look at your high temperatures each day, strong front coming in behind this. Much colder air tucked away in that low Wednesday into Thursday. Look at this, just the eastern half of the country. But already a major warm-up in the west, coming into the plains, the western plains, not the west. The west has a new trough Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's why it's cold again. And then we're going to watch by Saturday into Sunday. Remember, this is when that trough ejects. So the warm sector opens. That's why I'll keep an eye on the severe storms in this area. We go from Sunday into Monday. That will translate farther to the east. So has anything changed to the temperatures? Well, there's the day 5 through 10, so not much change there, but there has been change here, day 10 through 15. Now, if you remember yesterday, there was none of this. We were warm for almost all of North America, but the pattern has gone a bit more highly amplified in the west with a broader trough exiting east, which means some of that day 10 through 15 keeps a cooler bias, and the European sees the same thing. There's day 5 through 10, and there's day 10 through 15. It's not cold, it's just cooler than what was forecast yesterday. So I don't have a whole lot of new long-range information for you, but I do want to tell you this. The MJO is going to possibly make it through null space and come back out into phase 4, 5, 6. And if we look historically, phase 3, maybe it hits phase 3 first. We have a little phase 3 in there. Phase 3 tends to favor cooler weather east for a little while. We may get into this by day 10 through 15. But I told you, after the middle of the month, I do expect more mild conditions. And as you note here, if we get into phase 4 or 5, that's supportive of that. More ridging, deeper troughs up here in British Columbia. And the models are picking up on that. This is looking out there from the week of the 13th to the 20th. You can see the trough here and higher than normal heights here. And that results in a temperature pattern over that week following tax day of just quite mild air returning back into this section of the country, which I do think is going to be the case. On the precipitation side of it, though, let's look at a 30-day run here. Let me take you all the way out from kind of May. Let's go April 10th to April 15th to May 15. And it looks as though we'll start to see more windows opening. I still think the south stays quite wet. Big question marks as to whether or not we return moisture here and here, though. All right, one last click for today, and that's South America. Nothing about this map seems troubling to me about crop production. Wetter in the northeast, wetter Paraguay, southern Brazil, near normal, a little bit drier than normal signal coming out of Argentina, but not hot, and near normal rains for Mato Grosso. This would be the center-west region where we're growing a safrinha crop. Until this turns dry, I don't think this safrinha crop is going to have a major downside to it until this turns dry. And there's still some support in the forecast that could happen. So I'll watch it and we'll keep you updated. Thanks for sticking around a little longer today. Have a good rest of your day. I'm heading off to Nebraska, and I'll pick up again tomorrow morning from Kearney. Thanks.